In a lot of the creepy girl stories here, the girl is commonly unattractive to begin with. Have you ever been creeped out by a girl that you initially found physically attractive? What happened? A very attractive woman I talked to, pre-cell phone camera era, had several books of Polaroids of men's BTTS. Close up. No other distinguishing marks. She could name them all by memory. She would bring it with her to social events and ask for volunteers to be added. I thought maybe it was art. But at one point she mentioned she was trying to become a mortician and invent human body taxidermy. I assume she has a room of preserved BTTS now. IDK, if creepy is the right word. But when I broke up with my ex, she outright started choking me. I think terrifying would be more fitting. She seemed hot at first, so I went on a few dates with her before I realized she had serious issues. By the end of our fourth date I knew it wasn't gonna work out. So instead of ghosting her, I tried to be upfront. She threatened to pull a gun on me and I noped out of there so f***ing fast. I was just a high schooler at the time. Looking back, I doubt she would have done anything. But I was scared shish for a while there. Better safe than sorry. Better safe than holy. Better safe than ghostly. I'll just say that I asked her to never stab me with a knife and she said she couldn't promise I did it. She was serious. She had tried to stab her brother before. Very real. My cousin woke up one night with his wife hanging over him with a knife saying, "I'll kill you then myself." Turns out she had BPD. They divorced. But I think she's on medication now, has a nice family and children too. I'd hooked up with this lady a couple of times before when we'd both been drunk. She was a little quirky. But nothing really stood out until one night I learned the hard way that she was clearly unstable and insane. Then one night she shows up at my house unannounced and says she wants to get drunk with me. We have a few wines and are talking when suddenly she switches her language to French, not fluent either. Like high school level French. I think it's kind of funny for a minute. But she doesn't stop. Anything I ask her she responds in French. It quickly gets annoying. I ask her to stop. She switches back to English and starts calling me a Nazi and anti-Semitic. Why? No idea. She goes on a rant about the Holocaust and Hitler and occasionally inserts the odd French sentence. She then begins to insist that I am Jewish. I am not. Then starts calling me a Nazi again. I have no idea where this is coming from. She throws a glass at the wall. So I ask her to leave. She refuses. I begin packing her stuff up and place it on the doorstep. She then attacks me, scratches my neck, slaps me, tries to punch me in face twice. She then apologizes, says she's tired and asks if we can have sex. No. I literally force her out the door, where she spends the next 20 minutes on the street yelling about some guy named Paul, not my name. Eventually she left and was promptly blocked on every app platform available. At the first date she showed me day and other pictures of herself on her phone. And talked about how pretty she looked when she was younger. In the pictures she was young. And she didn't understand at all why I was upset about it because she's legal now since she's 21. Had a few dates with a girl. Looked fantastic and has a phenomenal. We had been texting while I was in bed and I fell asleep and as such. Ignored her. She drove her car at 3 a.m. to my place and rang the doorbell and called my phone multiple times. I didn't hear any of it because my phone is on silent and I could sleep through a storm. My neighbors, however, did not and were wondering who this crazy bee was. Lucky escape there. Sounds like she was dealing with major insecurities. When I was in my early 20s, I had an FWB type of thing with a woman in her late 30s with 2 daughters. Nothing serious because of the age gap, but I thought she was attractive. Eventually, she wanted a relationship. I didn't, so she said if we're in a relationship, I can have her older daughter too. For her younger daughter, she's too young now, but in 2 years I can have her too. No other women, though. I blocked her and never contacted her again after that. I'd feel like in a hole giving too many details, but I hooked up with this girl one night and she seemed normal, but every time I met her after that something was off. It seemed like she had a different personality each time. A lot of things she said didn't follow the conversation and her expressions didn't really do what they should. For example, watching a horror movie, she said the death scenes made her horny. One night I'm passing her room at like 3 a.m. and see she's just sitting there staring at her TV while it's off. I knock and I ask her what's up and she looks at me weird and says she's watching a show. I hadn't talked to her in a while, and then one day this girl says that she texted her saying I had trapped her in her room. I told my friend about it, and apparently she texted multiple people on different days claiming I was kidnapping her or something. Prior to this she told me she wasn't allowed to own a gun due to a history of depression, but the more I spoke to her the more I think something else was going on. I had a small gathering recently at my apartment. My girlfriend was bringing one of her friends for my housemate, and her friend had a friend with her. The friend, we'll call her Abby, was totally crazy. Towards the beginning of the night she was quiet, reserved and generally pleasant. By the time she had some alcohol in her she was completely different. She kept going on about how she always drinks with the boys and none of us could keep up with her. She just kept getting worse and worse, but claiming she was sober and wanted to get more fked up. Halfway through the evening she gets the idea she'll shove vodka-soaked tamp ns up her ass. The thing was, everyone was slowing down. My housemate and my girlfriend's friend had decided to go to his room, and me and my girlfriend were outside smoking and talking. She wouldn't leave us alone. From body language I'm sure anyone could deduce we were having a pretty intimate moment. And she had set a 20-minute timer to remind her to break up what was going on in my housemate's bedroom. As soon as that timer went off she was straight in there. After more vodka-soaked tamp ns and having her take the pillows off my bed for a pillow fight, I eventually had to tell her to leave. This was back in January, but I had met a girl on Bumble and we instantly hit off and went on a few dates. We did have a lot of very specific future goals in common, so she would very seriously say that we were going to get married and I would laugh it off. One day we were meeting up and she got into a minor car accident, so I went over to the scene and she was sobbing like crazy, so I thought she was seriously hurt and kept suggesting she go to a hospital. Every time I brought it up she would say, "Do you think I'm pretty? Tell me I'm pretty. Tell me exactly what you like about me. Do you really like me? What do you think of my outfit?" Never in my life had I instantly gone from being so into someone to not being into someone at all. Edit, just to clarify, yes. She had a minor concussion, and no, this doesn't explain the behavior because she had exhibited this type of behavior many times several weeks before the accident. I dated a woman for 2 years that said to me at the very first date that her father is always with her, sitting with us right now. Her father is alive and well, by the way. I immediately thought she is crazy, but I didn't have anything better to do with my night, so we had a very dysfunctional 2 years relationship with many weird stories in it. Worst idea I ever had. Oh yeah, more than a couple times. The thing is that the more attractive the girl is, the more we tend to be able to overlook. Back in my uni days there was this insanely hot redhead I met in one of my classes. She was smoking hot. Probably the most attractive woman I've ever been with. She was a solid 9-10 and she even showed interest in me. Took me a long time to realize that my closest friends who thought she was batshit crazy weren't just jealous. They actually might have been onto something. The SX was great. It was on tap, anytime, anywhere, anyway, and maybe that blinded me. I go in to take an final in one of my classes. After it was over I went outside and turned my phone on again. Something like 40 missed calls. 20 texts. I won't regurgitate the voice messages or texts. Except the last text. It was her hanging her dog from a tree with her belt. Her own dog. Keep in mind this was a dog she had cared for since high school. In high school, there was this girl a year below me who I'd helped once in one of her classes. Soon after I'd start running into her everywhere. Always trying to figure out my schedule and flirting. Then I started noticing her peeking from around corners. Her mom caught me outside the school to ask for my number to give her daughter. One day towards the end of that year, she grabbed a seat next to me in an assembly and kept trying to hold my hand. When I asked her what was up, she explained that she wanted me to come over so she could sew buttons in my eyes. Coraline style. I moved schools that year. Completely unrelated, but I do sometimes wonder what she's up to these days. This is the second story in here where the mom gets involved in the daughter's love life. Apples and trees and all that. When I was in middle school, I had a friend's mom call me up and start berating me. Calling me AW and AS because the boy her daughter liked might like me instead. Crazy. We were on our first date and things were going very well. After dinner she outright asked if I have ever dated a black woman. My date and I are both white. I told her yes because that was the truth. She then went on to say, I don't think I could ever date a N-word. The date was over. Yeah man, my ex in high school was a glorified psychopath. She was cute. I was head over heels for her. First love. She came onto me. Made the first move and everything. I was honestly shocked and flattered. About a month of dating she broke up with me because she, in her words, has this curse that she can't stay with a guy more than a month. I was heartbroken, didn't take it well and was left very confused. Another couple months go by, she was going after a few of my friends being very flirty. I didn't take that well either. After a while goes by, she wants to date again. I took her back, stupidly, because I just couldn't get over her. That's when S really fell apart. Every day she was a different person. She was happy as can be one day. Next day she hated everything and treated me like S. Next day stone-faced and stoic. Etc. etc. Several months enduring this. It really f***ed with my head. I started acting out at home more and not caring about school because I thought I was causing her to act like this and thought I was the reason for her problems. When we talked on the phone at night, her dad, also a psycho, would listen to our conversations on the phone and butt in randomly. Big red flag. But I dealt with it because I loved her. Eventually we had a big fight and broke up for good. I got out thankfully before I really started to lose my mind. I hear a story later on that she dated another guy. He wanted to break up. She didn't. She broke into his family's home, grabbed a knife and slit her wrists and left herself bleeding out in their kitchen until they came home. Thank Christ that didn't happen when I was dating her. She now has married an idiot from high school. Has one kid, another on the way, and they straight up ditched everything and moved to Alaska. To this day she still f***ed me up pretty good mentally. A lot of things I wish I did and didn't do. But I learned from it and hopefully will get all of this out of my head. But I am happily married now to a wonderful girl who understands me. Treats me well. Has a good head on her shoulders and loves me so much. A lot of good came from the experience. It was still a hellish nightmare at the time, but things got a lot better afterward. Met this chick. Literal Instagram model out in Cali. I was so hyped to hang out with her. She came by my place and smoked a few times. From the jump I had an off feeling about her. Her stories didn't add up. She was hot so I ignored it. She said she never did shrooms but wanted to try it, so I got some and headed to her place. We make some tea and take it. Let me backtrack a little bit. She always came off as one of those new age spiritual girls. Talking about energies and auras and stuff. Anyways, we're going through her YouTube and a bunch of her recommended videos were of conspiracy theories like Obama as an alien or MK Ultra. LMAO, I tried to ignore it but she brought it up and said wholeheartedly Obama is an alien. Vaccines are bad, etc. I again ignore it because I'm on mushrooms, I got nowhere to go, and she's still hot. Anyways, we have a good time watching music videos until she says, did you know aliens are watching us? You know, sometimes I feel like a doll in this little tiny box apartment. I feel like someone else is controlling me. She then proceeds to say, I'm actually a witch and I'm 108. At that point I'm done with her and just want to leave. She ghosts me after that trip. She then deletes all her social media and changes her number. I thought she died, and one point I questioned if I dreamed her up because all of her friends' IG accounts are gone. She pops back up a few times over the next couple of years. This time she's saying she's pregnant with twins, I don't believe her, and some random celebrity as the dad. She's still modeling and flying across the world, at least from her pictures she is, but goddamn. She also mentioned she was sex trafficked in Croatia. She can barely hold a coherent conversation.